Welcome to Annette on Life, Liberty, and Happiness. Tonight, we are going to be talking about guns. We are going to be doing an episode that we call Guns 101, which is basically an overview and intro for people that are like me, who don't necessarily know much about guns, but we want to. And it's time that we did at least get some baseline knowledge as we get ready to buy something. And I'm still in the process of figuring out what, when, how I'm going to pay for it and all that. But I do think it's a good time to buy something if you haven't yet. And so joining me today is Nate Ottosen. Hi, Nate.
Hey there.
Nate's my gunsmith friend. And if you haven't watched any of the other episodes with him, you need to go back and find them because he's got tons of great information on guns and knives and prepping. And so this is his bailiwick. And I want you to appreciate my new sign back here. If you're not watching this on YouTube, find it on YouTube. If you go to YouTube and type in Annette Talks, you'll find this. This is all on video as well as audio. And today's going to be very visual. We're going to have a lot of visual aids, AKA guns and ammo. So if you want to see what we're talking about, go find it on YouTube. And please subscribe and share and like and all that kind of stuff. And I think guns are really important right now. I want to put a plug in for an upcoming episode I'm doing with a friend, and we're going to be talking about Helmut Hubener, who was a teenage boy in Nazi Germany, and we're going to be talking about how he was part of the underground resistance and how he paid the ultimate price for it. But in learning about that, we learned, of course, that Germans were not allowed to own weapons. And so we always want to remember, I'll be talking in that episode with my friend about some of the parallels that we see between what's going on now in 2021 America with what was going on in 1930s Germany. And so owning a weapon, let's just say owning a weapon really seems to me like a duty now. It's something we should all do if we want to keep our freedom. And so we're gonna jump right in. All right, Nate.
If you don't exercise a freedom, you lose it.
That's right. Second Amendment.
That's right. So I've been a gunsmith now for a long time, and I'm always surprised when people come in and they've bought their first firearm and they've sort of made a mistake. And one of the things that I kind of want to do here is to give you a little bit of vocabulary and a little bit of basic understanding. Because when I was talking to my girlfriend, I was like, hey, listen, why do people make these mistakes? And she said, well, Nate, they don't know where to start or how to do any research. They don't even know where to begin. And so what they do is they go to a gun store and they talk to the sales clerk. And that can be a good thing, but it almost never is, because the sales clerk is wanting to sell you the gun that he has in the store that he wants to sell you. He may not want to sell you what you need the most. Now, we're in a time and a place right now where the guns that are available are probably the ones that you can get. I know that was sort of round or circular logic, but it's true. You may not be able to get everything that you do want, but let's at least give you some vocabulary, some understanding, some places to start so that you'll know, and you'll be armed with that. You'll have the ability to go in and say, these are the sort of things that I'm looking for, and these are the sort of reasons that I want them. And that way, if the clerk says, oh, no, you don't want that, you'll be able to say, yeah, I really do. Now, if you are listening or watching this and your main question is, what should I buy? And you really want to know the answer to that right now, you don't want the rest of the vocabulary, I'm going to tell you right now, there are 3 different guns you should probably choose from. This is a Glock 19. A Glock 19 is a great gun. It's a good all-around gun. It's a little harder to use than some of the other guns I'll show you for which one should be your first gun and which one you should buy right now. But it is a good gun. It's a gun that I've carried a lot, and they really do work. Lots of militaries have them. There's a good reason for that. Another gun, this is a 442, or you can get 642s that are silver. They're little J-frame Smith & Wesson 38 revolvers. They're unbelievably easy to use, and they're great. They're great guns. They're a little small for your first gun. You're better off with the Glock 19, but If you're only going to buy one gun and you're worried that you might need a gun that you can carry and conceal, put in your purse, put in your pocket, put in the pocket of your jacket, a 642 or 442 or any other Model 36 J-frame Smith & Wessons, those are a really good choice. Your salesmen are going to go, oh my gosh, that's 150-year-old revolver technology. Just laugh at them and say, oh no, I know what I want. This now this looks a little old and beat up, and it's also nickel plated, but this is a Model 10 Smith & Wesson revolver. Smith & Wesson still makes this Model 10. They've hardly changed it since 1889. That's got a long history of success and dependability. A Smith & Wesson Model 10 is a great choice for your first gun. One of the things that's nice about that is the ammunition's cheap. You can get a wide band of power in your ammunition, and we'll explain that a little bit later if we've got time. And they're unbelievably accurate and easy to use. You can load it, you can put it in your dresser, you can put it in the glove compartment of your car if that's legal where you are, and forget about it until you absolutely have to have it, and then there it is, and it'll work for you. Smith & Wesson Model 10. That's a great choice. Those are my three first choices. If you don't listen to anything else or don't learn anything else from this, learn that one. Go in, say, I want a Model 19 Glock, or I want a Smith & Wesson Model 10, or I want a Smith & Wesson Model 36, and insist, because they'll try to talk you into other stuff. If you're brand new at this, I'm not so sure this is a good idea. Now, when I was a kid, I lived on a farm like all the people around me, and basically I started guns with a 22 long rifle. That's this little bullet right here. It's just a little less than 1/4 of an inch across. That's the caliber 22, and it's what we call a rim fire. So a pin will hit the back of that on the rim. Can you see the rim?
Mm-hmm.
How there's a little ridge down there at the bottom. That'll hit that and make it explode, and that'll make it go off. And I had a gun almost exactly like this. This is just a little 22 rifle. This is a great place to start because you can learn your trigger control, your sight control. 22s are so cheap to shoot. Most people in the United States, when they were kids, started out with something just like this. If you can start out there, that's a really good idea because it's cheap, they're easy to shoot. You should be able to pick up a gun kind of like this at a pawn shop, like a little bolt action, a little semi-automatic, for less than $200. And when things kind of calm down, and they will again, and you can get 22 ammunition on a regular basis, I don't know what it'll cost you. For a long time, you could get 500 rounds for about $12. So it was cheap. It won't be that cheap in the future, but it'll stay fairly inexpensive. If you can, I'd recommend starting there. You can also get a little 22 pistol to go with it.
Okay, do they take the same bullets?
They take the exact same bullets. I know it says long rifle, but that's just the name of the cartridge. But they work the same. Now, one of the things that's nice about a lot of 22 pistols is you can get them where they will have the same kind of size and balance profile as a bigger gun. That way you can practice your trigger control, your safety, all of your stuff like that. You can practice all of that cheaper. They call this is a Ruger 2245, and they call it that because it's shaped and it feels just like a 1911 45.
Okay.
I know that they look different, but that's a 1911 45. Oh, yeah. They look different, but you can see that the controls and everything are in the same place. It's basically a really good cheap way to get started. And that's one of the things, if you can do that, I'd recommend that. But a lot of us aren't in that position. So let's talk a little bit about that. That's a rim fire, right? And then you've heard of shotguns, and this is a shotgun shell. Now, this looks different than this, not just size. You may notice the construction's different. Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things is it's a centerfire cartridge, and you can see there's a little kind of a round divot-y looking thing in there.
Mhm.
That's the part that when you strike it, it goes off. That's in
Oh,
the middle. It's not out on the edge. So it's a center fire. And then there's powder in this case. And then up here, instead of a bullet, there's small little round pellets. They're like BBs, only they're made out of lead and they're smaller, because a shotgun shoots a cloud of shot rather than a single projectile at your target. These are designed for shooting birds. So it's moving, and because it's moving, it'll shoot a cloud of what you're shooting at. Here's a couple of other shot shells, just so you can kind of see what shot shells look like.
so are shotguns better for hunting basically than just regular rifles?
Well, you hunt birds with shotguns, basically.
Okay.
Now, the thing that's nice about shotguns is this case is really versatile. So you can get shotguns where they have little pellets for little birds, or what they call buckshot. That's big pellets for deer or personal defense. They're 36 caliber or 32 caliber. They're round, so they're lighter than, say, if I had a 32 caliber pistol bullet, but they're still relatively lethal. You can use these for personal defense, and they work really well. One of the nice things about it is, we'll talk about rifles here in a minute, but they have one bullet. It's designed to be very accurate at a distance, but this is going to shoot a cloud of littler bullets. So it takes less accuracy, but I don't want to misinform any of you. There's a myth or an idea that you can just point a shotgun in the direction that you want to shoot it and it will kill the bad guy, and that's not accurate. It still takes discipline and aiming. It just is a little easier.
I noticed that. I went shooting with a friend of mine, and the shotgun was my favorite because I was able to hit things easier with that shotgun than with the what do you call it? See, I don't even have all the terminology down, but
Sure.
well,
Well,
easier than
rifles or pistols.
Rifle, right, or pistol.
Yeah. And shotguns are easier to hit things with. You can get shotguns that shoot slugs. You can even get shotguns that shoot slugs out of a rifled barrel. That makes a shotgun really versatile. We talked a little bit before about if I could only buy one gun, it would be a Remington 870 shotgun with 3 or 4 barrels. If you listened to this podcast before and you thought, wow, that was a really good idea, because Nate said I should be able to get one for $180 at my local hardware store, or I think do you have Galleons there? What's your big box sporting goods store?
Oh yeah, we have Cabela's. Oh no, that's a shooting store. We also have shoot, I can't remember it. Shoot. Get it. I'll think of it. We have I can picture it. I can picture the big, huge sporting goods store. I can think of it. Anyway.
Everybody's got a big box sporting goods store.
Right.
A couple of years ago, you could go in there and you could buy a Remington 870 Express for $180. You could do a little looking online and get a couple of different barrels for it. You could get a short one for home defense.
So you have to take one barrel off and put another barrel on. That's how it works. Is that pretty easy to do, or?
That's real easy with the Remington 870.
Oh, okay.
For a number of shotguns, that's pretty easy. Some others, not as easy. But a Remington 870, it was really easy. You could get that 870 cheaply, but the problem is now you can't, because Remington is bankrupt. And that 870 went from $180 to $700 overnight.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. So is there anybody else that makes a shotgun rifle like that is decent?
You can get a Mossberg 500. They're still pretty affordable. I don't like Mossberg 500s. If any executives from Mossberg are listening, I'm sorry, contact me and I'll explain to you why I don't like your gun. But they're okay. They'll work. They're fine. They're not very expensive. They're still fairly plentiful out there. There's another gun that you might be able to pick up, particularly if you live in the Northeast. And it works like an 870. So we talk about shotguns, right? Well, we're on the topic of shotguns. Let's talk about kind of how they basically work. This is what they call a pump shotgun. And so you notice it has this big wood thing right here, right? Pull that back.
Those are fun. I think those are fun.
And don't they sound great?
Because that's kind of thing you think of when you think of like those old movies with, you know, the gangsters or whatever back in the day, right?
Right, because they'd use Winchester Model 12s. They used Winchester Model 12s at the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. Thompsons have all the bad reputation for that, but they had the Model 12 too. This is kind of a cousin of that. This is an Ithaca 37. If you can find an Ithaca 37 and you can afford it, you should pick that up. These are great little guns. Sometimes they're in rougher shape than this. I got lucky with this, but an Ithaca 37 is a good choice. You can occasionally find different barrels for them, particularly if you live back east. 870s were the guns down here in the South, and in the West, Ithaca 37s were kind of the Yankee gun. But if you can find these, you can find them with deer sights on them. Sometimes you can find them with shorter barrels, and they're fantastic. An Ithaca 37. Usually when you can find them, they're affordable, $350, $400. I don't know exactly what they're costing right now because the market's so volatile and I don't want to be quoted. The other kind of shotgun that you see a lot of, that'll be double-barreled shotguns. Sometimes they're an over and under, and sometimes they're like this. They're a side-by-side. If you've got a good double-barreled shotgun, that's a nice thing to have. They intimidate people. They're really easy to use. You just put the cartridges in there like that. After you've fired them, some of them.
So is that the point of a double barrel shotgun? Is it just that much easier to hit a target because you got two bullets coming at them instead of one?
Oh, it only fires one barrel at a time.
See, I didn't know that. Yeah, so what's the point of two
question.
Barrels then? It's just that you're loaded. Well, you've got two loaded or what?
Yeah, you've got, what's nice about a double barrel shotgun, and this really is a good thing. You essentially have two guns right next to each other. If one breaks down, the other one still works.
But it only shoots one bullet at a time.
It shoots one bullet at a time. Now, if you can look, this has two triggers, right?
Oh,
So after you've pushed your safety off, you fire that front trigger and then just slide your finger back to that.
Oh, cool.
It's
so
easy.
You were going to give us an overview of you said 3 categories of guns.
Yeah. Shotguns, rifles, and handguns.
Okay.
All right. So a rifle shoots a single projectile, the little copper thing right here on top, and it has grooves in the barrel. Those spin the bullet and they make it really accurate, like when you're watching football and it's
spiral.
Yeah. Germans found that out by accident around 1600. Fascinating story, but we don't want to go into that here right now, even though it is. Most rifles are center fire, right? But some rifles are rim fire. Rifles, they come in a lot of different sizes. Here's 3 of the most popular. This is a 308 right here. And this is a 7.60 by 39. This is the AK-47's cartridge. 308 and 7.62 are exactly the same distance from here to here.
So what's the difference in like a longer bullet, like the first one you showed us? Is that like a more of a distance? You get more distance out of that?
You do get more distance. You can put a lot more powder in this case than you can in this case.
So is it more lethal then?
Well, no, it's not more lethal, because actually out of these 3 bullets, out of these 3, right? This one probably has a longer list of being lethal. It's actually traveling a lot faster when it hits the body, and it causes a great deal of hydrostatic shock. Now, there are a lot of people, right, who are in this camp right here, who are like, well, that big fat bullet traveling a little slower is always going to be more effective. You can ask 5 gunsmiths a question and you'll get 6 different answers. This is a 7, or this is a 5.56 or a 2.23, right? This is what an AR shoots. These work. I mean, I don't know. Now, if I have to shoot something from a distance of over 500 yards, I'm going to take a 308 like this every time.
Okay.
Because that bullet is a lot heavier, and the heavier a bullet is, the longer it will keep its power.
So that means the longer distance you can shoot from.
That's right.
So was that the biggest one? Wasn't there a bigger one? One?
Of the stuff I've got right here, the 308's the biggest.
That's the biggest. Okay. So that's the longest distance one. So if you have to shoot, like if you're a sniper or something, that's the kind of thing you want. Okay.
As a matter of fact, a lot of the military sniper rifles today shoot 308s.
Okay. I only know that from watching NCIS.
Oh, right. Exactly. Because that's what Gibbs has.
Yeah, you know, Gibbs is off the show now. I have to say that's very sad. Yes, I know. I watched the first episode without him last night, and it's just not the same. Yeah, he finally left.
How can you take Gibbs off the show? It's like taking Abby off the show. Are you going to tell me Abby's not on the show too?
Abby's been gone for a while. You know that. I know.
I don't know.
Really need to wrap it up because I think it's just not going to get any better from here. But anyway.
Yeah, I don't, yeah, darn it. Okay. So yes, those rifles. Now let's talk just a little bit about rifles really fast because I want you to have some vocabulary. We talked about break open shotguns, pump shotguns. There are semi-automatic shotguns. I don't actually have one. I could, but I'm kind of a traditionalist. I don't care for them, but they're great. I mean, don't get me wrong. They're wonderful. They work really well. But I don't have one to show you, but that's not important. So rifles, right? So pump action rifles, break open, they have different operating systems. A lot of you, your granddad bought something like this and it's in your closet and it's a great gun. This is a Winchester lever action. Most of them are in 30-30.
Is that the kind that goes like this?
Yep, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, like that's fun. I like anything that reminds me of old movies where, you know, you've got cowboys that come down with their, or like, what's the one with the long coats? Yeah.
The
movie.
Oh dear, I can't even.
The movie with the long, they all had the dusters, and it had.
Pale Rider.
What's that?
Pale Rider.
No.
Oh.
And he says, "I'll be your Huckleberry."
Oh, that was a great.
Yeah.
That's
I can't remember what it's called all of a sudden.
Tombstone.
Yeah, Tombstone. And he's got. Tombstone. They all have those rifles, and they, you know, I just love that.
Yeah, they do. Sometimes.
I tell you, it's hot. It's hot. And those dusters. I don't know what it is about. I've got to just share this with you men out there. The dusters that they wear in Tombstone are hot. I don't know what it is. There's something about that scene with them coming down the street, all wearing those long coats and those rifles. It's the hottest thing. Anyway, go on.
You know, if you ever read the testimony that White Earp has of that gunfight, it's actually fascinating because White Earp tells a lot about his thought process while he was there. And sometime we ought to get into that because if you can keep your head like that, when you get in a situation, you're going to be miles ahead. And part of the ability to do that is to think ahead, to plan ahead, to kind of have some experience of this. When you're training yourself with the firearm, find ways to put yourself under a lot of pressure. That way, when you're actually under this is my life and the life of my loved ones pressure, you'll already be kind of used to having to think under difficult, stressful situations.
Right.
It's one of the reasons why a lever action is really nice, though, because that just does not take any thought. It's really natural.
Yeah.
You can get lever action guns in a lot of different cartridges. A lot of people will tell you that they're obsolete. The idea of this is obsolete. That's just silly. The other thing that's good about lever actions is if you live in a state like California, you can still own these.
Oh,
They don't have a detachable magazine. They're not a semi-automatic. I think you can even own these in Australia, but don't quote me on that. I'm not a lawyer.
all right.
They hold 8 rounds, but they're effective. Most of them, when you find them, that are Winchesters like this, 94s, are in 30-30. And I don't have a 30-30 here right now, but the ballistics on a 30-30 are
What does 30-30 mean?
That's the cartridge that they're in.
Okay.
The ballistics on a 30-30 are the same as the ballistics for the 7.62 by 39 for the AK-47. So when you're shooting it, you're shooting almost the exact same kind of cartridge as you would be shooting an AK-47. Now, that's an oversimplification, of course. Some of you are going to listen to this and you're going to say things like, not exactly, Nate. And I know that, but it's
all right.
Cool.
So are AK-47s semi-automatic?
Most of the ones that you find in the U.S. are semi-automatic.
Okay.
There are a few that got in here before they changed the law. So if you desperately have to have an AK-47 machine gun, they're available. You just have to spend a lot of money for them and go through some really.
I think I've shot an AK-47 semi-auto, and that sucker was so much fun to shoot. It was just like, it was just beautiful. But I think that gun was like, I want to say $1,500 or something like that. I mean, it was.
Well, all AK-47s are kind of expensive right now. There probably will be a time in the near future where they will be a little less expensive, and then they will go back up again. So if you see one for less than $1,000, you just go ahead and bite the bullet and buy it. Not necessarily you, Annette, but if you think you might want a Kalashnikov, go and buy it if you can find one for less than $1,000, because there's going to come a time when they're all going to be $1,500.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of you are like, "Oh, golly, I don't have that." But what I do have is the gun that my dad brought back from World War II.
Oh, wow.
There are a lot of military bolt actions. That's right. This is called a bolt action. There are a lot of these floating around.
Not as sexy, but they'll get the job done.
That's right. They aren't sexy, but you know, if my ward, like if my bishop came to me and he said, we're going to Missouri tomorrow, we need all your firearms for the ward, you can only keep one, I'd keep a Mauser like this.
Really?
Yeah, I would, because it's indestructible. Even I mean, you just can't break them. They shoot a pretty high powered cartridge. This one's an 8mm. It's an 8x57, but all the cartridges that Mausers and other military rifles are in, they're good, solid, dependable stoppers for game and for predators like bad guys.
And that's from World War II?
This one's from right afterwards. This is actually a Yugo 48. Tito made these in 1948 because he was afraid he might get overrun by the Russians. But it's a 98 Mauser, so it's a design that's been around since 1898.
Wow.
And Paul Mauser had a lot of time to really settle out what he wanted and what he needed to make a gun that would really last in the trenches of World War I, in Antarctica, in deserts, anywhere. Mausers like that just run for you. They don't give up. Enfield rifles that the British had, it's the same thing. I don't have one of those here, but I've got one. A Springfield 03A3, just like that. It'll just run no matter what. A lot of those military bolt actions are practically indestructible. There are some small exceptions to that. So if you have a military bolt action that your granddad brought back from World War II or World War I, your great granddad, and you don't know what it is, you find a good reputable gunsmith, you take it to him, you have a look at it, you make sure that it's okay. but most of those guns are fine. They're great. They're a little heavy, sometimes a little bulky and awkward, but they really, really work. They're just fine.
Now, can you get ammo for those?
Can. Right now, it's a little harder to get ammo for that because we're right in the middle of an ammo crisis still. But there is still ammo available on a limited basis. Eventually, ammo will get pouring in again. You know, they're making that in a lot of different countries. 8x57 is a good example of a gun that there'll probably be always some ammo available for it. 7x57 is the same. Some of the other military rifles, maybe not so much.
Okay, the Mauser that you were just talking about, the bolt action, what kind of ammo does that use?
That one's an 8x57.
8x57. Okay.
Yeah, so it's 8mm. The bullet's 8mm across, and it'll be 57. The case will be 57mm.
Okay. See, people like me have no clue when you say 8x57, or I don't know what that means. So
well, and that's one of the nice things. Metric designations are real easy. Like I said, this is a 7.62, right? So that's how far it is across, 7.62 millimeters and 39 millimeters. Is that right? 39? Yeah, 39 millimeters long.
Oh, okay.
And that's cool. That's how they do it. We say 308. In Europe, they say 7.62 by 51. And it's the same cartridge. It's kind of the same with this, only it's a little more complicated. This is that, oh wait, no, here we go. This is the 223 or the 5.56 by, I forget. There's a metric designation for it too. Everybody in the United States just says 5.56. There is a wee little bit of a difference for all of you who nitpick everything that people say, but basically it's pretty close to the same thing.
So those first pistols that you showed us that you said, what was it, Glock 92, S&W 38, and S&W Model 10.
Yeah,
can you get ammo for all of those?
You can get 38s and 9mm right now. Okay. Before we move on to pistols, this is an AR-15.
Oh, okay. Yeah, those are sweet too.
They are. They're fantastic. These are really easy to learn to use well. One of the things that's nice about them is you can adjust the stock to different sizes. So if you're shorter, you can push that in and you'll be a little more comfortable with it. They shoot this cartridge right here. Inside the stock right here, they have a really nice buffer tube that makes it a lot softer to shoot.
Oh, right.
So
yeah, I've shot one of those and I found it to be very easy, and it's not easy for me to shoot a lot of guns, and I like that one.
Well, and you can see I'm holding this up with one hand, and it's just
it wasn't very heavy. Yeah.
Heavy, like that 8mm Mauser is a heavy gun,
and that's a semi-auto too, isn't it?
It is. So once you chamber around, then after you've taken it off safe, you can just keep pulling the trigger. One of the things that this really has as an advantage over the other guns over here is it has a 30-round magazine.
Yeah, sweet.
And the thing that's nice, like this is oh, I forget the name of the company, PMAG. PMAG makes these, and they send them with this little doohickey right here so that you can keep them fully loaded.
Oh, right. And
this will take the pressure off of the magazine lips. You got that little doohickey on there, so you can just keep them in your closet ready to go like that.
Yeah, that's nice.
And I always keep about 15 of these on hand. I know it's a little Red Dawn, but
can you get that ammo right now?
You can get that ammo right now. Okay. That's the stuff, that and 9mm are the stuff they're making the most of.
And the AR-15s, what are those running right now? Do you know?
Well, that's another bright spot too. Because of the Obama administration's attempt to really make war on the AR-15, they kind of made that gun unbelievably popular. And so a lot of little specialty gun making shops popped up and started making AR-15 stuff. And so there are AR-15s everywhere. You can still get one for $600 or $700. And there's a lot of them out there right now. For a little while there wasn't, but it's kind of back on. If you can't find an AR-15, a lot of times you can find all the parts from one company and a lower receiver from another. You have to get a federal firearms license and fill out a 4473 to buy the lower receiver. And then you can put all the parts together. It's a little bit like putting some complicated Legos together. If you
buying furniture from IKEA. Right.
Exactly like buying furniture from IKEA. If you can't put your furniture from IKEA together yourself, don't do that. But if you can put your own AR-15 together, and it's one way to get one if you can't find it any other way. A couple of years ago, you could buy a receiver that wasn't finished, and you could finish it yourself and make that into a gun. You can't do that anymore now. They call that a ghost gun. I mean, you can, but they've actually taken most of the companies that made those and found ways to put them out of business, so they're hard to do. They call that a ghost gun. It's a silly name, but basically it was just one other way of taking some of your freedom away. Yeehaw. There you go. Okay, handguns, real fast. Let's try to do some handguns real quick. So we talk a little bit about sometimes all you've got access to is your granddad's gun, right? And there are a lot of people in the United States who might have a granddad's gun that's very similar to this. This is a Colt single action army. It's not actually a Colt, it's a Uberti copy, but it's a Doc Holliday kind of gun, you know. And there are still a lot of these in this country. These work real well. They're a little old-fashioned, and they have some disadvantages. One of the disadvantages is you have to load it one at a time through a loading gate.
Oh, right.
So it's slow to load, and you also push this little thing to unload the cases one at a time. So it's slow to unload, right? And then you have to cock the hammer every time you use it.
Each time.
But that's the kind of gun they had at the OK Corral, and it killed a lot of people.
Yeah. Didn't they used to do this kind of thing with it? I mean,
you can. I'm not going to do that here because that's embarrassing. You'd be surprised how fast people can be with this. And this is the cartridge that this one holds is a 45 long Colt. That was designed by the U.S. Army to kill horses, and so it stops people. These guns work. If I didn't have anything else, I would still feel comfortable with this. I know some people are like, blah, 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 blah. No. But these are fantastic. If I didn't have anything else, I'd be like, oh, yeah, I'm fine. A lot of states where you can't have other guns, you can't have this. If you live in a state where you can't have hollow point bullets, 45 long Colt is a really good choice for you because it's a 250 grain, flat nose, slow moving smack, and it stops. It stops them. OK Corral, just watch. It stopped them. So a lot of you, if you have a Colt like this or a Uberti like this that you inherited, and it's in 357 Magnum, 44 Special, 45 long Colt, you're OK. You don't need to buy anything else. You've got that. Just get yourself some more ammo. It's a little hard to get 45 long Colt, 44 Special, 3840. Some of the cartridges that these are in, it's a little hard to get them right now. If you can't get it at all, you can reload for it. That's something that you're probably going to have to do. If you have a gun like this and you're not going to buy something new, you may have to make some other adjustments in your life. And one of them might be that you have to learn to reload. But this is okay. You've got this. Now, we've talked a little bit about things that are okay, right? Let's talk about something that I recommend against. There are a lot of people who they inherited them from one reason or another, or maybe they bought a gun like this because they thought it was a good idea. This is a little 25 automatic. Now,
that is tiny. That is little.
It is tiny. When it comes to little guns like this, I recommend against using them. If it's the only gun you have, if you don't have anything else, you just can't get anything else, okay, It's better than not having a gun, right? It's better than throwing rocks.
Right.
Don't buy something like this. A lot of people go to a store and they make the mistake of saying, well, that I just want a tiny little gun because it'll be easier to use. Let me tell you something about guns that's completely counterintuitive, but it's actually a fact. Up until a certain point, the bigger a handgun is, the easier it is to handle. The bigger a handgun is, the easier it is to handle. You'll feel less recoil. The further distance between your sights, the more accurate you'll be. This is hard to get a hold of. It's hard to operate.
Oh.
It's got a neat little safety right here to take the safety off on this gun. You just squeeze it, right? Put it on, you just push a little button. It is hard to do that, even for me.
Even what about with smaller hands?
Probably with slightly smaller hands, you'd have a little less trouble, but I stay away from little 25s like this unless you don't have a choice.
Right. That's good to know.
They call these vest pocket guns, and I actually have this one because it's an ore heist, and I collected ore heists for a while. They had a 25, a 32, and a 380, and I had a cool little set. Somebody stole the other ones, which is a bummer. But if I had this gun and I knew I were going into a fight and I had room, I'd put it in my pocket for a very last ditch effort.
Right.
I'd do that because, like the gangsters in the 30s used to do this, they put them in their vest pockets.
Right.
They call them vest pocket guns. If that's the last one I had, I'd have that at least.
You use all your other ones first, and then when you run out of ammo or something, then you use another one.
Yeah, I've got that. And so that's what I've got it for, and it's okay, but don't do that. Don't buy a gun like this. Don't do it. It's too hard to use. It's a bad place to start. You might think it's a good place to start. When I was in college, you could get guns like that for $50. I don't know what they cost nowadays. I don't buy stuff like that, but stay away from stuff like that. Now, that said, this is a Colt 1903. Now, it's a little bit bigger gun. It's in 32 ACP. This is a fantastic gun. If you have a gun that your granddad brought back from World War II that's a German equivalent of this, or a British equivalent of this, or one of these, you're fine. Just have a gunsmith take a look at it. But this was a ubiquitous gun in the teens, 20s, and 30s. Cops everywhere had them. If you look at a Bogart film, Bogart always carried these. These are great. As long as you can shoot okay, they're fantastic. They shoot 32 ACP, not the strongest cartridge in the world, but if you're smaller, it's really easy to control. Shot placement is a lot more important than power, and if you can learn to really shoot this gun well, you're fine. And you've got one of these, and you can't afford anything else, you're fine with this gun. A Colt 1903, Mauser, I forget what the Mauser is. Mauser made a gun like this. Browning 1910. There are a lot of guns like this that are just fine, and if you've got that, you're okay. 32s are not as bad as some people say they are. Now, let's say that your dad was a police officer in the 80s and he retired and he kept his service weapon, and he's got a big 686 Smith & Wesson revolver and 357 Magnum. This is fantastic. If you own something like this, if it's in your drawer and you're like, well, it was dad's old 1980s or 1970s police gun, it's, as long as you have a gunsmith take a quick look at it, it's perfectly fine. It'll work great. 357 Magnum is genuinely a bad guy stopping cartridge. Of all the guns I have here, if I knew that I was going to be in a gunfight, this would be my second choice. Well, actually, of any of the pistols revolvers, handguns that I own. If I knew I was going to be in a gunfight, this is my second choice. This is fantastic. The only limitation to this is it only holds 6 rounds. Plus, it has a little bit of recoil in full house 357 Magnum. If you shot this at first, you'd be like, oh my gosh, Nate, it's so front heavy. And then when you actually fired it, you'd be like, oh my gosh, it's so loud and fire shoots out from the end. But when you saw what it did downrange, you'd be like, oh my gosh, Nate, you're right. This is fantastic. Another thing, just a side note, nice little old guns like this, if you have a good gunsmith, they can do a wonderful action job on them, and they're smooth as silk. You just can't get this from a modern Smith & Wesson revolver. So if you got something like this, you're good to go. You know,
Nice.
680 Smith & Wesson, any of those bigger frame Smith & Wesson guns, you're all right. Now, let's say that your granddad was a Marine and he brought back his 1911 from Iwo Jima, or I don't know, however you got your 1911. This is the workhorse of the U.S. Army from 1911 until about 1985. This is one of the best handguns ever made. It's in 45 ACP. That is a big old cartridge. Let me just show you one. Here's a 45 ACP for comparison. Here's a 9mm.
Oh yeah, wow, that's big.
They got these big old hollow points.
I was gonna say that's a hollow point. Yeah.
Yep. I've taken some training courses with this gun. It just runs and runs and runs and runs. Once you get a 1911 running, they are absolutely fantastic. I don't know what to say. I carry this gun all the time. I've got my little inside the waistband. You know, this goes inside my pants. These go around my belt. And then as long as I have a shirt untucked, you can't see it. And this is a big gun. It's a big gun. Just a couple of things that this has, that if you can get these in your personal defense pistols, this is really nice. See these little dots? Those are tritium inserts.
Oh.
So they glow in the dark or low light.
Huh.
So if you can get a gun with tritium inserts, that's always nice, because if you have to fight in low light, you can see your sights perfectly well. At least you'll be able to see those 3 dots and you'll be like, aha.
Right.
That's a nice thing to have. Your Glocks you can get those on your Glocks, on your SIGs, all of those newer pistols that are semi-automatics. This Glock, it doesn't actually have them. It's just got little white outlines.
Wow.
Nice sights though. But this is, like I said, this is that Glock 19 that we had earlier. One of the reasons why this makes such a good handgun, if you could only have one gun, is you'll notice that it's smaller than that 1911.
But if you didn't have a dad who was a Marine or someone that brought that home, where would you even pick something up like that?
Where would you get a 1911 like this? Well, you can get a 1911 at almost any gun store. If you walk in and say, hey, I want a 1911. One of the nice things about 1911s that's really cool is originally they were made by Colt. And then during the Second World War, a lot of companies started making them, and they don't have a patent on them. So lots of people make 1911s now. You can get 1911s made in the Philippines that'll cost you about $325. I don't have one. I can't say that's a great gun, but I've seen a couple of them and they weren't bad. I've seen some for about $350, $400 made in Turkey that were really, really nice. And I hate to say that because Turkey, but if you can't find anything else here, like if you're like Nate, I can't find a Glock 19 and I can't find a 642, but I did find one of these Turkish 1911s. I might buy that. That is a perfectly acceptable personal defense gun. You'll like it. So far, all of the Turkish guns that I've seen that were 1911s were great. They're not expensive. The Filipino ones, I think they're a little rougher, but they sure seem to work. One of the really nice things about any of those cloned 1911s is the parts will work whether they were made in Turkey or by Colt or by Springfield, or mine are just generic parts that I threw together at work. All those parts will work in the other guns. Some of them might need a little gunsmith fitting, but they work fine.
All right. So Nate, we only have a few minutes left.
Right.
What do you want to wrap up with here? How many more guns were you wanting to show us today?
Well, that's That's the guns.
Yay! Woo!
That's the guns.
Awesome.
But I talked to some of my coworkers a little bit, and I said, all right, now listen, if you could reach an audience of brand new people and you would tell them, here's some things that with the time and experience I've spent that I want you to know about guns. I asked them, well, what would you say? Right. And all of them said two things. And like, remember when I said you can ask 5 gunsmiths a question and get 6 different answers? So when you get a universal answer like this, it should tell you something. The first thing they said is learn and understand your safety rules. There's lots of websites that will go through all of them. I don't want to go through them here, but they're simple and they're plain. And the nice thing about them is they're redundant. If you're watching this, you may have heard that an actor was recently in a terrible accident where he hurt a couple of people with a gun almost exactly like this.
Oh.
Hard to make a mistake with a gun like this. You really got to work at it. But if you follow the safety rules, you'll have 5 levels of redundancy to keep people from getting hurt. I want you to think about how that failed at 5 levels. How did that happen?
Yeah.
Arrogance?
Someone that's not a gun fan, that was the one that shot the gun, probably out of some arrogance, ignorance. That's a bad combination.
Yep, it really was. So know your safety rules. The other thing they all said, and I really strongly agree with this, if you are not familiar with firearms and you live in a place where you can get some coaching from a reputable coach, get some coaching. Get some professional training. That's getting easier and easier to do as time goes by. When I was 19, if I tried to get professional coaching, it would have been impossible and people would have laughed at me because I'm a male. I'm just supposed to know how to shoot. It's supposed to my whichever.
You're supposed to be born with that skill, right?
Right. But now people realize that there's a lot of need for real training out there, and you can get a lot of good training as a civilian. There's that guy in Las Vegas. He does a great job. If you can't find anybody else, go and see him. I don't always agree with his politics, and I don't always agree with some of his philosophies, but at least he does a good job training people.
What guy is this you're talking about?
Do what?
What guy are you talking about?
His name's Clint, and he runs something called Thunder Ranch.
Oh, okay.
And that's probably the biggest training facility in the country. Almost everybody's heard of that. I like his training regimen. He'll tell you to just buy a Glock. He'll say, don't ever buy anything else. Don't use anything else. That's all stupid. This is 2020, whatever it is. Just buy a Glock. I don't particularly agree with that philosophy, but he's got some good points. The other thing he does is he'll tell you not to get involved if you see a fight. There's some good reasons why he says that, but I'm not entirely sure I agree with that. If I see a cop getting beat up by 3 or 4 people and I can tell that there's something bad going on, I'm going to get involved. Clint will say not. Clint will have good reasons for that, and he's right in a lot of ways. I'll probably have to hire a lawyer for my act of good Samaritanism or whatever you want to call it. But there are a lot of local people at a lot of your gun shops that can train you. Just make sure that they've got accreditation, make sure they know what they're talking about. It's a little too easy to get NRA certified, so make sure you can check up online and see what these people can teach you.
Bass Pro Shop, that's the place I couldn't remember from earlier. the box, whatever store. Anyway,
so those are the 2 last things I want to leave you with. Learn your safety, get some training. It's always better to spend your money on ammunition than on a fancier gun.
Yeah.
Your tools and your tactics are not really as important as your experience and your mindset.
All right. Great. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Nate. That's a lot. And the nice thing about this podcast is that you can watch this anytime on YouTube. If you're listening to it, you're not going to get the full effect as if you're going to go back on YouTube and watch it. So you can see the guns and see the ammo and see us and see my new sign. Anyway, all right. Thanks, Nate. And we will have you on again. I know. I'm very confident you'll be on again to talk about something. So
if you guys have any questions, send them to Annette. I'll try to
yeah,
answer.
you can post it on my on the on YouTube underneath this, or you can send me an email to Annette at AnnetteTalks.com. Also, feel free to follow me on Facebook. Follow me, find me under Annette Bybee, Bybee. You can follow me there. And anyway, this has been great. Thanks again, Nate.
Always a pleasure.
All right. And thank you, everyone, for listening to Annette on Life, Liberty, and Happiness, where freedom lovers gather.